longer, I swear. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to hit answer live and done. And so looking answered. The first question is, it's been about 14 months since D-Day, 6 months since our formal therapeutic disclosure, and 3 weeks since I discovered he relapsed. So this is clearly from a partner. I'm so sorry. So one of my conditions for letting him move back into my house included having a lie detector test. Well, we had one on Friday and he failed everything except that he truly loves me. He is committed to this relationship and is committed to overcoming these problems together. Thoughts?
Yeah, let's see. 14 months since D-Day, 6 months since formal disclosure, 3 weeks since I discovered he relapsed. Yeah, normally a polygraph takes place immediately after therapeutic disclosure. So I'm not sure if that happened 6 months ago, and then this is another polygraph since after the relapse or not.
I think this is a new one because it says one of it was the lie detector was for him to move back into the house. So yes to your point about timing, but regardless, he
he failed everything except that he truly loves me, is committed to the relationship, and is committed to overcoming this problem. Well, he passed on all the good stuff. I mean, I'm not going to make excuses for him. He relapsed. And maybe he's still having some trouble coming clean. Maybe another formal disclosure is in order, but he passed on he loves you, and he's committed to the relationship, and he's committed to overcoming the problems together. So if you're still in it with him, then he's still in it with you. I mean, that's the good news. The bad news is he relapsed. You know, addicts.
Okay, they're saying there's more. So, well, it's challenging when there's more. So we'll get to them in order. So. Right. So I guess more will be revealed, Scott. So,
okay.
So the next one I'm putting in answered, so you can follow it too. So neurobiologically, when deep in trauma, brain spotting, EMDR, et cetera, session in the lower non-thinking part of the brain, is it possible for the thinking to manipulate thoughts and feelings? Oh, that's a good question.
God, we need David.
I was gonna say, that's a Dr. David question, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, come to Wednesday night at 5 o'clock. Dr. David Foss and I are there. This is his area, and he can answer this question accurately. For me to answer it is a guess. I don't know if Tami has any more.
It would be a guess to me too. I have a hard time believing that. I mean, because I don't know. I'd have a hard time believing that it can manipulate, you know. But I think there could be pieces that protect, and like, you know, getting to trauma in layers. But I'm not sure about manipulating. I would feel like it's more defensive. But Dr. David, or, you know, we've got other therapists who are EMDR, et cetera, trained that they may, but Dr. David's the right choice. Okay, so apparently this is part 2. About 9 hours later, after lying through his polygraph, he tells me that the number of folks he slept with is about triple what he disclosed previously, including one after D-Day. I told him I need to have him pass a polygraph with flying colors before I can move forward, and he's agreed to schedule another one. So let me go back to the other one and move. So here's apparently, I think maybe the last part. So many parts of me that have been socialized within the codependency model keep screaming that I'm giving him too many chances, but the prodependence mindset I'm trying to develop says this is a healthy boundary I'm setting to keep myself safe while supporting him in overcoming something that's plagued him since adolescence, and that it's also okay to be a cheerleader for him while keeping the relationship at arm's length. I'm wondering what your take is on the viability of this relationship. I'm not going to answer the last piece without, but like, yay for you. I mean, like, to me, what I hear is healthy boundaries. You still care about somebody, and, you know, that doesn't make you a bad person, or, you know, like you said, the whole codependence stuff, but like, you love somebody who's broken. But having healthy boundaries, what you really, you know, you set a healthy boundary, you are adhering to that. That all seems like a really good thing. I think my question is, what are the consequences? You know, like, clearly what he has done thus far is not enough. So what is the next level of care? And we do have a treatment program with expert treatment that we address all those underlying issues. You know, I was concerned when it was like you had discovery again, you know, so it isn't even like he's going, oh, I relapsed and, you know, well, it isn't a slip, it is a relapse, and, you know, and there's more. So he, you know, he's lied on the disclosure, et cetera. So having just another disclosure, you know, I would wonder how successful that would be. To me, it's like a higher level of care. He needs more help. I mean, this is one of those where, you know, he's got a chronic, and you said since adolescence, like this is old stuff. This is not a 50-minute a week with a even an excellent therapist. You know, that's the heavy lifting stuff. So that's my thoughts. Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I will answer the last question about viability of the relationship. If you are committed to staying together and he is committed to staying together and he is committed to doing the work that he clearly needs to do, which Tami just covered, then it's a viable relationship. And I like that you're staying positive. It makes life easier for everyone, including yourself. But he's going to have to do the work. If he's going to continue acting out, he's going to continue breaking your heart, and that's not going to work very well for you long term.
Yeah, and you mentioned too that you were in separate houses, so you know, and as part of moving back in, you know, he had to complete successfully, and he didn't. So you know, continuing to have not just the healthy boundaries of you know what is removed, but also what's going to help, you know, move the relationship forward. Again, like what he's doing isn't enough, so you know, helping define what will be more useful, you know, could be really useful too. So okay, can you see this one? It's it came in at 5:04. Can you see it on the open, or should I move it to answered?
My one place or the other. Just put it in answered with the rest of them.
Okay, I will. All right, so usually at some point they catch up, but all right, and answered. So, do addicts in denial often try to alienate their partner from the addict's family? My porn addict, sex addict is divorcing me after 26 years together. I've been very close to his family for all these years. After telling me repeatedly that we'll always be family and I will always be included in holidays, they have now stopped including me. I think it's at his request. I think being excluded from family hurts more than him leaving. I've heard addicts often alienate their partners from friends and family. Is that often the case, especially when addicts who are in denial and don't want their secrets out?
Tami, you want to take that one, and then I'll follow you.
So I think, you know, if he's still in active addiction, you know a lot, you know, and you can tell his secrets and you can put him in a bad light. So yeah, I mean, to me, it does make sense that, you know, he's going to protect his walls and his family. That said, you know, family often takes sides regardless, you know, when relationships break up, you know, even with good intentions, you know, it is more difficult, but it is, I think, a very likely scenario that, you know, he and who knows how he did it, but you know that he, you know, wants to keep the division up. So
Yeah, I agree. You know, I was reading this thinking this may or may not have anything to do with addiction. I mean, family dynamics when a divorce is happening change, and you know, maybe the addict is being manipulative. Maybe he's just trying to set boundaries to protect himself. I'm assuming it's a he. Probably shouldn't do that. You know, maybe he's angry and acting out. Maybe the family is angry and acting out. Maybe they're trying to protect the addict. Maybe they're trying to protect you from the addict. I can make up 100 different stories. The only way you're going to know is to maybe ask them, and that may not be possible right now. I mean, I feel your pain. I feel there's a lot of pain in this question, because these are people that you love and care about. I mean, they've been part of your family now for 26 years. And to be kind of pushed out of that is not fair to you. But it is the kind of thing that happens when people get divorced. Divorces are ugly and they impact more than just the two people who are divorcing, always.
well, and at family gatherings, it's awkward because now the two of you presumably are in a room and you're divorced, and I mean, like it takes a high level of emotional maturity to be able to do that. And I always say when there's kids involved, you know, it behooves adults to act like adults and put them first. But it, you know, it can be, you know, it can be really challenging, and grieving the loss of, you know, the extended family. And it may be that you go, okay, I can't see them at holidays, but is there an opportunity to have coffee with them or have lunch? Or, I mean, are there other ways to interact with them that isn't just at the big holiday events? Are they open to that? Or is it a hard line of like, no, there may be some room for, or some of them, I mean, it's a family, you know, sister-in-law may be more amenable than mother-in-law or something. I don't know. So next question. Hi, I'm a betrayed partner of 3 years. Is it good to ask the SA about his recovery and what he is learning, or should I just focus on my own recovery?
I'm a big fan of betrayed partners asking questions. I'm not a big fan of them pushing for very specific details. How many meetings did you get to this week? 5. Great, good for you. What step are you working? I'm on step 3. Okay, cool. How are you working step 3? Now you're budging into therapy and sponsor-sponsee territory. So yes, ask questions. Please have boundaries. Don't expect to see his written work when he's working on his 4th step. You don't get to see that. That's not for you. Therapeutic disclosure is where you get to find all that stuff out. There are processes, and you don't want to mix the processes up. His recovery work is his recovery work. Now, as a betrayed partner, I think you have every right to know that he's doing the work and approximately where he is in the work. And has he talked to his sponsor? Has he talked to his therapist? But asking, have you had any thoughts come through your mind about acting out? No, that's thoughts. You don't want to know about thoughts. Have you acted out? That's a legit question. Have you thought about it? Not so much. And I won't let my sponsees, the guys I work with, I tell them not to answer that question because it's not a bottom line behavior. And that's if they have a thought about acting out, they need to take it to their sponsor or their therapist or a fellow recovering addict. Now, if they actually act out, they have to tell the betrayed partner. Absolutely. So there's a line, and it'll vary by couple, but it's generally pretty much his work is his work, your work is your work. You should be informed in a general way, but not have all the very specific details. That's my personal thought. Tami may disagree.
No, I absolutely agree. But here's the other thing. I think for me, recovery was such a huge, new part of my world, that it like I would have insights or somebody would say something really meaningful, like not share their personal details. I sent him a quote today because like part of my recovery was all these little quotes. And so, like me, me sharing a quote that I heard today, or, something that was meaningful to me, that was part of sharing my recovery without telling, exactly every little thing. And I hear people talking about writing their first step and that's going to be their disclosure. And like, it terrifies me. So if you're writing your first step, again, that's your private thing and partners don't get to see that. That's not disclosure, and disclosure should be with professionals, et cetera. So, rather than the aftermath of, oh, we shared everything because we wanted to, do it ourselves, surgery, so to speak. So I think, but having you guys be doing stuff completely separate, how are you supposed to interact and work on your relationship if there's this this just huge elephant in the room where you're going like, we can't talk about that, so having conversations, and you won't do it perfectly. And, like Scott says, his sponsees don't answer that one. And it's okay to say, my sponsors has advised me not to answer that. And here's why. Oh, okay. It's how you're going to learn. It's like a whole different language of, all this recovery stuff. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and addicts, particularly early in recovery, I mean, you've been a betrayed partner of 3 years, so I don't know how long of that he's been in recovery. But addicts, particularly early in recovery, really are discombobulated. They can't answer most of your questions. I mean, if you think they're lying to you, they may be trying to tell you the truth, and they're just not clear enough in their own mind yet to tell you the truth. 3 years, he should be able to tell you the truth and everything, but he should still have his own private therapy and 12-step work that is for his betterment. And interaction, I encourage couples counseling if you're struggling with this.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and if he's doing 12 steps, I mean, he should have been through the 12 steps more than 2 years ago. I mean, like, you know, yes.
He should be walking somebody else through them at this point.
Yes. Okay, so next question. So I just want to say that I relapsed today. Oh, and I'm glad you're here, and I'm learning all about my addiction since 3 weeks, but honestly, it felt so good in the moment and it was so awful afterwards. I used to have success with eating too much, and do you think these tip systems that I succeeded with in that will be successful here? Another thing I did is journal the hell out of my relapse and tried to figure out exactly why I was getting so excited, just like I used to with food. Thank you for being here. This is all fabulous stuff to share. So you want to start?
Sure. You know, there's a saying in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not letting the cat out of the bag to say Tammy and I are both in Alcoholics Anonymous. And the saying is, there's nothing worse than a head full of AA and a belly full of booze. Being in recovery kind of ruins the addiction, you know, and it sounds like you experienced that with the sexual behavior. It's like you feel so awful afterward because you know you're in recovery for it now. You know this is terrible for you. And hopefully, I love that you journaled about it. Hopefully you can journal about that part of it, even though in the moment it's still exciting and you know, gives you a little bit of payoff. Is it really worth it? You know, and most of the time it's not. That's why people keep coming back, and that's probably why you're here tonight. It wasn't worth it. So I'm really glad you're here. It sounds like you're in recovery from eating. And will the things that work with your eating disorder work with sex addiction? Absolutely. You know, you may need to tweak them a little bit because sex and food are not quite the same thing. But you know, reaching out to other people. You know, I weed the yard. I clean the house. You know, my house. If I'm struggling, my house is spotless. You know, I play with the cats. I pick up the phone. All of these tools that work for me, and I have multiple addictions, and I use the same tools for all of them. So yeah, I think they'll work. So, Tammy?
Well, so coincidentally or not, we have a journaling webinar this Wednesday, and it's on so Harriet Hunter has a whole little course on that, and she's agreed to join us and do a one-time. So at 9:30 a.m. Wednesday morning Pacific time. And it's specifically about journaling for recovery, and it's for partners or those that have been struggling. But I do think writing it down and, you know, looking at this, and we have tools that we use in our treatment program. And I was really fortunate to work with somebody on a support session that shared, like, this person did an autopsy of a relapse. Hang on, so I got stuff coming in. And I thought that is so helpful, because if you can start looking at, you know, because we talk all the time on these, is like relapse doesn't happen when you do whatever the behavior is. It's, you know, 2 days ago when somebody, you know, made a comment and you personalized it, and, oh, you know, woe is me or whatever, you know, get a big old resentment against somebody here. That's when relapse happens. Now I've justified why I needed to act out. So having the journaling and being able to look back at not just in the moment, but like, why were you feeling so compelled to do that? And why was it going to feel so good to do this? You know, I think that will be super helpful. And, you know, our treatment program, you know, we treat co-occurring chemical addiction and sex addiction, but we've had people, you know, that have had eating disorders. We've had people that have had shopping or gambling or gaming or spending or whatever. It's all, you know, it all at the end of the day is trying to fill the same hole in the soul. I was in a meeting with the former head of ASAM, the American Society of Addiction Medicine, a number of years ago, and he said there is no S in addiction. Addiction is addiction. And I went, yes, because, you know, and we get, I call it kind of garbage can addict, where like, well, I can't get to that, so I'm going to use this, and well, that, you know, whatever. It's just that, you know, constant looking for something that will help. And, you know, and when we learn to be okay in feelings that feel uncomfortable, and we have tools and support, you know, all of that can change, and we don't have to eat the whole chocolate cake or, you know, go, you know, sex, porn, drink, drugs. We don't have to do it. And that's the freedom, is that we don't have to do that anymore. So, okay. So, So let's see. I have to switch this. All right. So like we're gonna after this one, we're gonna switch to open because there I'm getting comments that we're missing some. Sorry. 3 months into recovery, I screwed up. I admitted some things in disclosure, and those things were discovered. She's irate. How do I fix this?
Oh, you screwed up, but now you want to fix it. Welcome to recovery. Yeah, you're 3 months in. You admitted some things in disclosure. This is why, by the way, I personally am a big fan of polygraphs immediately after disclosure. It makes it really difficult to omit things. She's irate. How do I fix this? Thank you. Well, you get honest. Rigorous honesty. Tell the truth. Tell it faster. You bring in a polygraph. Maybe do a proper full disclosure followed by a polygraph. You know, so that she can get back to ground zero. I mean, yeah. I mean, all you can do is you can't undo, you know, what you just did. You can't unbake a cake. You know, once you're a pickle, you're a pickle. You can't go back to being a cucumber. You know, all that kind of stuff. You know, it's out. You left some things out. You lied. She's not happy about it. She has a right to not be happy about it. You are going to have to earn her trust back, and that is going to take a good long while. Longer because, you know, 3 months just went poof. 3 months where she was working to trust you just didn't totally disappear, but it pretty much disappeared. So yeah.
So is it my internet or is it yours?
I think you just froze, unless I froze on you. Okay.
You look frozen, but it could have been me. So okay. So hopefully it was yeah. So I concur. I'm less a fan of the polygraph because I don't think enough people know how to do them well. And you could do it before or after and all that. But I mean, I know the addict is going, oh, I don't want to tell her this because, you know, this will be the deal breaker. The lying's the deal breaker. I mean, you know, the omitting stuff is the deal breaker. So for those of you that are listening, the other thing I wonder about is the therapist you were working with, what was the preparation for the disclosure, you know, because I mean, that is about being rigorously honest and how to not compartmentalize, but categorize is a better word. How do you categorize the different things so that, you know, it's a page and a half, it's not the 20-page narrative. And so there's, you can't undo it. Your partner is now in a worse spot. You know, the hole is deeper to dig out of. It's going to take longer. It's going to take you working harder to be truthful and honest, you know, to try to make progress on things. So, so in my world, that would be, I need to work harder. You like you telling her sorry isn't going to cut it. You saying I won't do that again isn't going to cut it. You doing everything you can to work on, you know, on being abstinent, sober, you're not lying about anything.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's going to change. And it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take more time now. So, but don't give up. I mean, you know, like our program is called Seeking Integrity. We all strive for integrity. You know, that's what it's about. So, so I want you to know that, you know, the hole is bigger, but you know, there is support and support ladders to get out of the hole. How's that? So
yeah, and you know, I'm speaking to the addicts here. When you do disclosure, hopefully you're doing a formal disclosure with a trained CSAT who knows how to do this right. But if you're doing it on your own or with a CSAT, I don't recommend doing it on your own because it gets screwed up and this happens. But either way, don't leave anything out. Your partner is right now more upset about the lies and secrets than anything you did. I guarantee it. And number two, if your partner finds out that when you said you came clean about everything that you didn't, that's going to make it 100 times worse.
It's not if, it's when. It's when.
And they find out.
Yeah, I mean, I swear this always happens. It's like they find out something, you know, secrets don't stay secrets forever. So, okay. Seeking integrity around love and sex addiction, but what about seeking closure for those that are no longer in the relationship, grieving something that was bad for us without closure? How do you find closure on your own? Any ideas?
Integrity around love and sex addiction, but what about seeking closure? Okay, so it sounds like somebody has broken up because of the addiction and now they want some closure. Am I reading that right, do you think?
Well, or it could be a death. I mean, there's lots of applicable, like
Yeah.
this person is no, it's hard to get closure, for
Yeah. I mean,
for a variety of
grief
reasons.
what we're talking about here is grief. And grief has stages, the Kubler-Ross stages, denial. Oh, I don't have them in front of me. I can't remember. We want to get to acceptance, bargaining and all that stuff. We want to get to acceptance, and closure is when we get to acceptance and kind of stay in acceptance. And that doesn't really. Everybody thinks closure involves the other person, and it really doesn't. Closure comes within ourselves. And getting to acceptance through grief comes within ourselves. So just because you're no longer in the relationship doesn't mean you can't come up with closure. But keeping in mind, closure is about you. It's really not about the relationship. If the relationship's over, it's over. And you have to grieve that, and you'll get to acceptance. But closure is the real deep internal acceptance. I mean, that's how I always read closure. And that's an inside job. So I don't know if you have any more to add to that, Tami.
No,
Sure, I read the question right.
Well, no, I put a link for Sophia Caudle on In the Rooms, did a really good session on grief, and different forms of grief. But she also has two groups that I know of, that are free on intherooms.com about grief. And so I think, touching base on those, you may find some support and guidance around healing, from the grief. So, but I mean, I unfortunately, grief is part of life. So it's one of those where none of us want to do it, and I think addicts tend to do it poorly. So it's a really important thing to be willing to address. So I'm glad you're willing to be vulnerable and do that. So.
Yeah.
My husband is an SA and has been abstaining from all sex for 10 months now, as all forms of sex are his inner circle. I'm not at all ready to begin reintegrating sex into our marriage. I worry the longer we wait, the harder it will be to reintegrate this into our relationship. Is there an amount of time where it becomes too long before stepping back into some form of sexual intimacy?
Every couple's different. Any of the questions about, when should this be right, or when should this be fixed, or how long should we do that? There is no answer. Every couple is different. But what I will tell you is the goal of sex addiction recovery is not permanent abstinence. The goal of alcohol addiction recovery and drug addiction recovery is usually permanent abstinence. Sex addiction is different. It's more like an eating disorder. We don't want to go the rest of our life without eating or without being sexual, particularly if we are in a relationship. Now, clearly, you're not ready to begin reintegrating sex. So it's not time. If he's not ready and you're not ready, it's not time. I would maybe start discussing it in couples therapy at the year mark or something. I'm hoping you're going to couples therapy, so that you can talk about it. And then when it does come time, it's not like, oh, well, our year is up, boom, we have to have sex. That's not what it means. It means we can start talking about, maybe we'll start, engaging in some physical intimacy, like holding hands, that doesn't lead to sex. Or we'll just start, talking, looking each other in the eye and sharing, something intimate. Or, the last time we had sex, I really enjoyed this. Or, start talking about sex without actually doing it. And then move up to back rubs, but still no sex. Things like, the Masters and Johnson sensate focus exercises. It's going to be awkward when you start up again. That is normal. Whether that's at the 2-month mark or the 6-month mark or the 10-month mark or the 2-year mark, it's going to be awkward. So take it slow. Don't do it before you're ready. And don't do it before you're both ready, because sometimes the partner is ready and the addict is not, because he or she is not fully comfortable about just stepping back into a sexual life and staying sober while doing it. So, but I would say give yourself a couple more months and then start really talking about it in therapy, or start talking about it now in therapy if you're ready to start talking about it. So Tammy?
I have a couple things. First of all, I'm kind of surprised that all forms of sex, including, in a committed relationship, are in an inner circle. Is that something that you've seen regularly?
There can be reasons for that.
Okay.
And, I didn't want to dig into it too much, but I've had guys tell me I was cheating on my wife with my wife, which means they were
Oh, yeah.
objectifying their wife and using her as a sex object. And so there are reasons to step away from the relationship sex for a slightly longer period of time to clear that out of the head. So
Okay.
that would be one of the reasons for that.
Okay. Thanks. That's
It's
very helpful.
not 100% common to do that, particularly for that long, but
Yeah.
there could absolutely be reasons. So I'm not really questioning it.
Yeah, no, I that's really helpful. I hadn't thought of it in that particular way, and obviously you work with lots of sponsees, et cetera. So, and the thing I was wondering about is, because you're saying I'm not ready to re-engage, and so I'm wondering if the level of safety, like if you're still feeling that the relationship isn't safe, so I think I would, explore that with your. Hopefully, you've got a good support therapist too, of like, what is it going to take for you to even be willing to start, thinking along those lines, that may be valuable for you, to take a look at. But I think it's going to be awkward conversation, and then it's going to be awkward physical. But I think, the holding hands, massaging feet, all of those things that are non-genital, non-sexual, so to speak, but just physical touch, Dr. David does, talk often about that as well. So
By the way, awkward can be really fun. I mean, we were all awkward teenagers at one point, and it was really fun. So be awkward again and enjoy being awkward. I mean, when you're ready. So
yes,
again, when
yes,
you're ready.
yeah. Okay, next question. Can a person with intimacy disorder ever truly love and bond to a partner?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's levels, and I think, as we work on, Dr. Rob and I have talked about, we think, addicts, regardless of what form it takes, have intimacy disorders. I mean, whether it's an alcoholic, drinking all alone, or somebody having porn or sex with strangers because that's not intimate. It still is an intimacy disorder. So but the person shared earlier, that is still really committed, loves my wife, and all of that. So I think yes, but I think it's also on a shadow level. It's not as deep as it is when we are fully able to be vulnerable and truly intimate, not sexual, but intimate, with another person. So I absolutely know, addicts can learn to do things differently in recovery, and and overcome. I mean, that's one of the things we treat at our treatment program is intimacy disorder, whatever form that takes. So thoughts?
A little flip with that question. When we talk about an intimacy disorder, an addiction being an intimacy disorder, what we mean is things happened when I was young that taught me that other people can't be trusted to meet my needs. So instead of turning to other people, I turn to alcohol or drugs or sex or porn to escape the pain of my unmet emotional needs. In addiction, I have to learn slowly but steadily to open up, usually with a sponsor and a therapist first, and then people in recovery, and then I get around to family and loved ones, being more open and honest and vulnerable with them. And sadly, betrayed partners are the last ones let back into the loop, because you're also the scariest ones. You're the ones who can hurt. You're the ones we love the most, so you're the ones who can hurt us the most. So you're the hardest one for us to truly open up and become vulnerable and intimate again with, and emotionally intimate. That's people equate sex and intimacy, and we try not to do that. Intimacy is about an emotional connection. And that's what addicts, it's not that we're incapable of that, it's that we fear that. And we have to overcome that fear through recovery. So, I didn't mean to be flip earlier, but we can recover. And the biggest part of recovery is learning to trust other people, learning to trust and be trustworthy at the same time. And that's what intimacy is all about. So yeah.
That was great.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm struggling with self-forgiveness. I'm 3+ years into repair and recovery, yet I still haven't really looked deep into myself to forgive myself for my mistakes, decisions, and behaviors. So it has then caused my partner additional harm. He's been with me from day one, no matter how much he has wanted to leave. And believe me, it's not been easy for him. But this past year, he's really at the end of his rope. Feelings are not romantic, but more like roommates. I want this relationship, and I know that he wants it too, with me being in a better place for myself and us. My therapist CSATs have never said anything to me about forgiving myself. I know acceptance needs to forgiveness. Can accept things I have done, and as hard as it is to do, accept how much pain I have caused my partner. I just don't know how to tell my new self to forgive my old self. We are a gay married couple, or a gay male couple. Sorry, not married. I didn't say that.
Why don't you go first on this one? I need
So
to formulate my thoughts.
yeah. So here's my first thought was, where did I learn to start forgiving myself? And it was doing the 12 steps, writing stuff down on the 4-step. Part of my 4-step, my very wise sponsor made me write down, like, it's accountability, but it was also, what some of what are my good qualities? Because it was really easy for me to look at myself as total worthless. um, so learning that I had worth and I had value. And I think for me, a lot of it was understanding, we've been talking about the old wounds, and like Scott just talked about the intimacy disorder, which this reeks of intimacy disorder, because I'm not willing to, be connected to him because I feel so bad about myself, and I'm not talking about all of these things. So my thought is, that those old wounds, whatever made it unsafe for you back in whenever all of this started, is keeping you from being the committed, close person that you really want to, rather than just a roommate. So my suggestion to you is to work with a qualified therapist, including your CSAT, and be addressing those deep wounds. What is it? Grief, loss, abandonment, neglect. I mean, what is it that is keeping you from being able to oh, I know one more thing. So Troy Love does a great webinar series on attachment wounds. That may be, he does Finding Peace. He's got the Friday morning group for men. That might be something that's really useful for you too, to look at, what's resonating. Because what I'm hearing is he uses one of the terms as the judge, and I'm, it's like, you're never going to be enough. And I can't help but think that there's some of that type of thing in there too. So that may be a useful resource for you.
Yeah, the judge is the shame voice. As I was thinking about this, I was like, this is all about shame. I can't have self-esteem while I'm still buried in shame. And, so I definitely suggest reading some Brene Brown. But the short version of Brene is, shame thrives in darkness, it withers in sunlight. So you're going to have to get out all of the old shame stuff. And whether it's with him or with your 12-step group, if shame is driving the bus, shame is driving the bus, and it's not driving it where you want to go. I was watching Parks and Recreation the other day. This is not a show I watch. I was clicking through the channels, and the blonde one, Amy
Poehler.
Amy Poehler, and she was dating some guy, and it was clearly like a first date. I don't watch the show enough to know the whole story, but she said, tell me something interesting about yourself. And he says, oh, well, I recently lost a lot of weight. I lost like 80 pounds, a lot of weight. She says, oh. He says, tell me something about you. And she says, oh, well, I'm divorced. and they kind of hem and haw, and then they decide to share their biggest fear with each other, and they're going to say it at the same time. And her fear is, I'm afraid I have too much baggage for anyone to love me, and his fear is, I'm afraid that losing all that weight won't fix everything. And then they laugh at each other, because he's like, your fear is silly, and she's like, your fear is silly, and their shame dissipates in that moment because they got it out and they were able to move forward. And I want you guys to have that moment where you spit your shame out, and and nothing happens. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of ridiculous, but thank you for sharing. I mean, get your shame out. And maybe I'm totally off base, but I think I'm not.
No, I love that. But I was also thinking, like how negative to always be focused on the shame, and like I can't forgive myself. Like that's such a. I mean, I don't believe that that's what recovery is. Recovery is about us living, like in the light, like Scott was just mentioning, like we live in the light, and we don't have to have secrets, and we don't have to, do the, oh, you're so bad. And we aren't. We're good people. We've made mistakes. We've done things that we wouldn't choose to do in recovery, and we can learn to live a different way. But this will keep you disconnected from somebody you genuinely care about, and that's sad for both of you. So I would invite you into the light. So
yeah, and by the way, I think at the 3-year mark, you're kind of on track. I mean, I was certainly pretty buried in shame still at 3 years. It was about the 5-year mark I really actively started opening up about my shame, and I'm glad that I did, because it enabled me to develop much better relationships with everyone in my life.
Don't wait till 5 years.
Yeah, do it now.
This is one. Yeah.
It's time, but do it now.
Yes,
But don't beat yourself up for not having done it yet.
Yeah. No. Right. Yeah, but yeah, you don't have to live in that negative space. So, okay, my husband and I were working on the marriage, even renewed our vows 3 different times in February, but I was on meds that made me moody. He became increasingly angry that I could not just let it go and forgive. He was also resentful of having Covenant Eyes software and never followed through with having someone else administrate over it. Recently, he decided he was done with it all and basically turned his heart completely against me, left me, and lied to get a restraining order against me. He has been addicted to various things most of his life, and porn for most of our marriage. I just found out about the porn in May. So it must have been May of last year, and he has not been consistent with treatment. He's been gaslighting me to the kids and his family for years, and has increased dramatically lately. Do you think he probably relapsed into porn again? Are there any services out there that I can get free? Any advice? So you're here. This is free. And all the betrayed partner support groups that are free. There isn't, I don't know of anybody who does treatment for free. But as far as he has relapsed into porn again,
maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got his Covenant Eyes software, so he could or could not. What I hear is,
I mean, at this point, it sounds like he's getting a restraining order. I would encourage you to step away for at least a little while and try and clear your head and figure out what you want and what you don't want from this relationship. I mean, I've seen people at this stage who've managed to get it together and the couple has survived, but I've also seen people at this stage step away, clear their heads, and realize, why am I still trying? So I would encourage you to get some distance and come to the free groups that Tami was talking about for betrayed partners, and get some real support from people who are going to emotionally understand what you're going through. And it'll help you clear your head and set boundaries that will keep you safe, which needs to happen, because it sounds like life is very unsafe right now.
Yeah. And I'm sorry about the kids. I
Yes.
hate, even if they're adult kids, when they get dragged into things, because, then they end up having to take sides, and it makes it difficult for, you're both their parents. So, it's very challenging.
Butt in on you for a second, Tami.
Yeah.
This goes for everybody out there who's listening. Whatever you say to your kids, you cannot unsay it. They will hear it, they will take it in, and they will remember it forever. So before you speak ill about your partner or your relationship, think about it. Because yeah, they're your kids, and they can't unhear it. So yeah.
No. And unfortunately, too many of them, I mean, there's adult children of alcoholics. There isn't adult children of, sexaholics or whatever yet. But many of the adult children from parents end up going to ACA because, they're traumatized, etc. So, but back to you. He's been gaslighting, so you're aware of this. You're hopefully you're off the meds that were problematic for you. But even if somebody's moody, or as Dr. Rob says, they gain 50 pounds, like that's not an excuse or justification for somebody to act out. There's other things to say, honey, I am concerned about your meds. It seems, can we go get them evaluated? I mean, there's lots of other ways to do that. So, but if he's always been an addict and he's behaving like an addict, probably, here's the deal. Even if somebody stops the behavior, if they don't really change, they're not in recovery. They've just stopped. They're abstinence, maybe, but recovery is like Scott was just saying, it takes a few years to really get on a recovery path where like it's noticeable and you're living it throughout your life. You're not just like not doing whatever behavior that that you're not supposed to do. It's like, it's a completely different way. It's thinking about, what is that going to be good for my relationship? Is my partner going to be okay with this? Am I lying to myself? And like, it's a whole different way of thinking and living. So.
Yeah, and but Dr. Rob has said, and I think this even is in Sex Addiction 101, addicts always want to know, when is my wife or partner going to start trusting me again? And his answer is, if you do everything right for the next year, your partner will start trusting you again. I mean, if you do everything right for the next year, your partner will stop. So it just takes a long time for trust to be rebuilt. And when, somebody's still acting out or gaslighting, it's just impossible for trust to be rebuilt. I don't know what triggered me on that path, but something did.
But think about how many questions tonight where it's like, oh, I lied on my disclosure, or I found out 3 weeks ago that he's relapsed, and I mean, like it's the lies. And Dr. Rob uses in Out of the Doghouse, if you lie about taking out the trash, it's still a lie. And if you're lying about something stupid like that, how can your partner ever trust you that the really big stuff is that you're suddenly going to magically be truthful? So,
and if your partner sees you lying to your neighbor, or you call in sick to work when you're not sick, guess what happens? That's the same as you're lying to your partner.
Yeah.
If your partner sees you tell a lie to anybody, it's ruining your credibility. So rigorous honesty means everyone all the time.
Yes. Yeah, including to ourselves, because we lie to ourselves and go, oh, that one doesn't really matter, or I'm doing this to protect that person. No, we're trying to hide it because we're not willing to be vulnerable. So, okay, next question. My SA spouse displays very high levels of avoidant behaviors. All I ever ask of him is to prioritize me in the marriage when I express my concerns about his behavior, and that is a huge trigger for me. He turns it on me, saying he just wants to forget about what he has done and move on. And then the big, you will never get over this. Oh, he states he is not going to get help because he is not acting out. He states he knows his behavior is horrible and he will try to do better. He's giving you really clear data that he, like, I'm sorry. He's like, this is the kind of addict that's so sad to me, because, like, just stopping the behavior is not, like, that's the horrible part, is stopping the behavior and not having recovery tools to live differently. So then we're stuck in all the, the bad spots. And, so he's giving you really clear messages that, he wants to sweep this under the rug, and he's not going to do the bare minimum to help you and help your relationship. So,
yeah, and if you want to get your needs met and feel safe in the relationship, you are going to have to set boundaries, and you are going to have to enforce the boundaries, and understand, I want to make it clear, boundaries are not about his behavior, they're about your behavior. So you can say, if you do this or refuse to do this, I don't feel safe in the relationship and I will ask you to move out. But you're not forcing him to do anything. You're telling him if he does it or doesn't do it, here's how you're going to respond. That's how you set an effective boundary. But make sure it's a boundary you're willing to keep.
Yes.
You know, if you don't go into recovery and actively get a sponsor and a therapist, I'm going to ask you to move out. Make sure you're willing to do that, and that, you know, financially it's feasible and things like that. But this is, the ball is in your court now to to figure out what you can live with and not live with, and to find ways to get your needs met within the relationship, because it sounds like that's not happening.
Well, and it can, you know, moving out is one option. I mean, people do therapeutic separations within the house, you know, so it may be that you explore what are my different options, you know, and for some, you know, it is calling the divorce attorney just so you have knowledge. It isn't that you have to get a divorce, but just so that you are aware of what it might be, you know, if that, you know, had to happen. We know lots of people that create safety for themselves within what is ultimately, I think, a toxic relationship, because he's not really getting, I use he and she, he's not getting help, but they develop support and resources for themselves so that they can set healthy boundaries within their home. They continue to live together. There's lots of, you know, reasons why people do that. So whatever works for you. This doesn't sound like it is working for you. So I'm with Scott. Get, you know, find boundaries that you can actually live with, and enforce, so to speak. And hopefully it motivates him to do something different and better. So, okay, next question. Is something wrong with me if I betrayed spouse 2 years out from D-Day, yet I have yet to feel anger at my addict? Okay, so this is the betrayed spouse 2 years out from D-Day, and they're wondering if there's something wrong with them because they aren't angry at the addict. Sometimes I get angry, but generally within an hour, it will quickly fade to sadness, empathy, and compassion for the addict. Everybody seems to talk about getting angry all the time at the addict, and it makes me nervous. I have not gotten to that stage yet. Thank you.
I love this question. When I was new to recovery, I could not discern one emotion from the other. So my therapist this was 20 years ago, so we didn't have the word emoji, but we had emojis, and it was a big sheet of emojis with words like sad, afraid, humiliated, you know, whatever. And I had to he would start my sessions out, what are you feeling right now? And inevitably I would say, I'm angry. And he would say, no. Anger is a secondary emotion. It wasn't even on his chart, mind you. He said, it's a secondary emotion. What's underneath it? And I love that, you know, sometimes I feel angry, but generally within an hour, it fades into some other emotion. You're getting to the real emotion. I think you're very healthy for being able to process through anger really quickly and get to, you know, fear or sadness or, you know, loneliness or even empathy and compassion. I think that's great. But anger does signal that something is wrong. I mean, anger in that respect, it's a really good signal that something is wrong, and that you may need to figure out what that is. So all of our emotions are a signal of something. So, you know, if you're feeling sadness, you're probably feeling sad that your relationship isn't the way you want it. And empathy, you know, maybe, you know, your spouse had a tough childhood and you're aware of that, and that's driving, you know, all the underlying issues. And, you know, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything wrong with you that you haven't gotten to the anger stage yet. You know, I don't know, Tami thought, I mean,
no,
betrayed spouses get angry, but there's usually fear and things like that under the anger.
Yes, and I'm with you with I couldn't identify an emotion, even though they were exploding from me. So yeah, so I've learned, but yeah, no, I love that you are, you know, that in touch, you know, with things, and do have, you know, empathy and compassion and sadness, and, you know, and able to identify and experience them. I would be concerned, I think, if you were shutting down all emotion. It's like as soon as you got angry, you were like, no, I have to be okay. You know, that would be scary for me, because, but it seems like you're really in touch with those, and that's a good thing. So, okay, last question. My partner, I think, is in recovery, but it has only been 5 months. How do I know it's real and not him just manipulating me again?
Trust your gut. Fact check with your friends. You know, hopefully you've got a posse right now, you know, a support network of other women or men if you're male. People that you can say, well, he says this, I don't know, it seems like it's the truth, but you know, it's tough for you to trust yourself when you want to trust him, basically. So fact check it. Trust your gut, trust your friends' guts, you know, yeah.
Yeah, and I really think, like, actions speak louder than words. If your partner is saying, I'm in recovery, yeah, I mean, I've had people that are like, I'm 3 weeks into recovery, and it's like they've just stopped doing the behavior. I'm like, yeah, no. I mean, recovery is, I mean, really, to me, it's a very meaningful, different way of living. And so I would think you would see tangible signs of change. Trust your gut and trust the posse. But if you're not seeing any real changes, and it's lip service to recovery, that would make me concerned. But hopefully you've got lots of good support for you in all of this. That's critically important, that you have the support. This is I answer lots of phone calls all the time, and this is a different world, in that, like, nobody gets in a relationship and thinks, and then one day we're going to be dealing with sex addiction, porn addiction, and I'm going to know everything to do, and I'm going to know how to do it right. And no, I mean, even the language we use, around this stuff is completely foreign. So having people to support you and help guide you really makes a difference. So we're glad you're here, and keep coming back. And for betrayed partners, there's the Old Lady Posse tomorrow morning. There's the Prodependent group on Wednesday afternoon. There's another one Thursday morning, and another one Sunday night. And then there's addict groups. There's men's and female. There's male and female separate drop-in groups throughout the week. Check the schedule on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, all spelled out. And keep coming back. Join us. And thank you, Scott, for stepping in. I really appreciate it. It's always great to work with you. So great questions. Thank you all for joining us, and we so appreciate the questions. Thanks, everybody. Bye.